I've had the new Nikon Z6III for about 36 hours, and these are my first impressions as a Sony user. If you're new to my channel, welcome. My name is Julian and I'm a photographer based out of Texas. If you like what you see, please like, subscribe, comment for more content just like this. So let's get into it. So a couple of things that drew me to want to try out the Nikon Z6III were mostly concerned with the sensor that Nikon has put in here. In case you didn't know, this is a 24 megapixel partially stacked CMOS sensor, and Nikon's always been known to have really beautiful sensors and really beautiful files that just come out of these camera bodies for years now. But what I was most interested in was that partially stacked part, where only the top and bottom part of the sensor have that stacked technology. And what this allowed Nikon to do was fit, honestly, the best parts of a really fast reading sensor, such as 4K 60, uncropped, 20 frames per second in electronic shutter, things like that, in a body that's only $2,500. And that was a really intriguing prospect to me because for the same price, Sony has their A7 IV, which is a notoriously slow reading camera. And I'm looking for a new video camera, and this caught my eye, so I wanted to see what it was all about. So one of the first things I noticed about this camera body is the really great ergonomics you get from this. Although I shoot on Sony right now, I have shot on Canon camera bodies as well, but I think Nikon has the best ergonomics when it comes to their camera bodies. It kind of just fits perfectly into your hand, and I have pretty big hands and my pinky isn't falling off at the bottom, and still it's not too much bigger than my current setup, which is an A7R5. I'm really enjoying the way it feels in my hand. I love the material that they're using for this grip, and overall the button placement and everything is really fantastic. The one thing I will say that I am missing is a back dial here. Sony has a back dial, which I usually use for ISO, but I got pretty used to pressing the button and using this top dial pretty easily. But ergonomics on this camera are really fantastic, and I don't think Nikon gets enough credit for that because this camera just fits so well in the hand. One thing I really liked about this camera body were the displays. The A7R5 has some of Sony's better displays, but in general, Sony doesn't make fantastic displays. I was a really big fan of the EVF, which got super bright. And for someone like me who kind of struggles to see exposure through the EVF because sometimes I don't think it's bright enough, I've really enjoyed the fact that this goes up to 4,000 nits, which I have not put at 4,000 nits, although I do have it on the brighter side. It just helps me when I'm composing. It helps me get a better exposure, and I really like it. The back display is pretty solid as well. I would say it's comparable to the A7R5. I haven't really been able to see a difference. I have been looking out through the images through the EVF for the most part, but I would say the back display is pretty respectable and I don't have an issue with it. Another thing that really surprised me about the Z6III coming from the A7R5 was the autofocus. I have been told, as everyone says on YouTube, that, Nikon is the potato camera of social media. It's everyone's favorite thing to do. And I think the biggest reason for that was lackluster and kind of subpar autofocus. And throughout my first 36 hours of using it, I've done a couple of video tests and a couple of photos. I'll put them on screen now. The autofocus has been really solid, at least for my kind of work. I'm a pretty slow shooter when it comes to the kind of work that I like to do, but I have been known to dabble in street photography, especially when I'm out traveling. It's one of my favorite types of photography while I'm traveling. So having really good autofocus is important to me. And from what I've seen, again, haven't been able to stress test this as hard as I would like to, the autofocus is really solid. Especially I've been using 3D tracking the whole time, and it locks on pretty well and it stays there pretty solid. I've tried it with my dog. I've tried it with just things I've seen around my apartment complex, and it's been honestly great. And I was, again, testing out the video for the first couple hours that I had it, and I never once saw it lose track of me while it was recording me in video. And I was recording in 6K 10-bit 422, and it never lost me once. So that was really surprising for me. I know people had said with the Z8 and the Z9, the autofocus is really fantastic. I didn't believe them, but that was one of the biggest things I was scared about trying the Nikons, is that their autofocus has been known to be pretty lackluster, but I thought it was great. So A+ Nikon, I really enjoyed the autofocus. I would say one thing I've kind of been struggling with is the menu system. I wouldn't say that they're hard to navigate because they're honestly not, but there are just some things that I use on a daily basis that I haven't been able to figure out yet, and there's not really many videos online talking about it. So one of the biggest things is that when I shoot, whether it's photo or video, I love to have a histogram up. It helps me with exposure because I have a tendency to underexpose, and that can kind of bite me in the butt sometimes. So I like having the histogram to know just how underexposed I am. Am I clipping those shadows? Am I not? Because I'm really bad at eyeballing it. And I haven't been able to find a histogram for photo or video. So video has been a bigger issue, right? Because photo, you can kind of deal with it. Video, on the other hand, has been tough. So if anyone knows how to get the histogram up, please let me know. Another thing that's kind of been driving me nuts is the fact that they have 2 different memory card slots. So with the Z6III, you're gonna have CF Express Type B, and you're also going to have SD card. And this is something that used to drive me absolutely insane on the Canon R5, was because I always had to carry 2 dongles, and if I forgot a dongle, then I was kind of almost SOL, because you would have to use the camera plugged in straight to the computer. Really messy solution, wasn't really great. So that is something that I really, really love about my Sony bodies, is although it is CF Express Type A, which objectively is not great, honestly, like I don't love it, I can still just use SD cards for everything. There's nothing on the A7R5 that I can't use a V90 SD card for. But with the Z6III, I've been having to carry around 2 dongles, which is really obnoxious. But it is something that's not, I wouldn't say is a deal breaker. And one of the biggest reasons I've been looking into the Nikon Z6III is because of its video features. Right now, Sony, I would say their best video camera is probably gonna be somewhere in the FX3 to A7S III range. And while those cameras are great, both of them are getting a little bit long in the tooth, and I wouldn't be super comfortable using them for both photo and video. And while I have had a really great time shooting on the A7R5, I would say it's a pretty slow camera. So I've been looking around. Nothing from Canon has really spoken to me. I used to shoot on a Canon R5 for a little bit, and one of the biggest things I didn't like about that camera was I felt like the video quality was pretty lackluster. So I'm looking not to switch systems, right? Because maybe I will, maybe I won't. But I've just been curious, you know, Nikon's been coming out with some really dope cameras. The Z8, the Z9 have really fantastic for both photo and video. So I wanted to just give it a little test, see what I would like, see what I didn't like. And for the first 36 hours that I've had this camera, there's a lot of things I like. So I want to talk about the video specs, but before I do that, I want to switch over to the Nikon Z6III so that you guys can get a feel for what the video looks like, and also I can just talk a little bit more in depth about the video and why Nikon seems so alluring right now. So what you're looking at right now is the not fully 6K, I want to say it's like 5.6 or 5.9K, 24 frames per second, N-Log, 10-bit, straight out of camera. And I was trying to record in 6K RAW, but it just kind of wasn't working. So that's why I'm using the 10-bit 5K, but let me know what you think. Let me know what the video quality is looking like. I think it looks all right, and I've been really enjoying the video quality I've been getting out of this over the first 36 hours of having it. But I kind of wanted to talk about why I've been wanting to try out the Nikon ecosystem, and specifically why I want to try out the Nikon Z6III. And a big selling point for me is all of the video features that come on the Nikon Z6III. You're getting that 6K raw internal recording up to 60 frames per second with no crop. You are getting really fast readout, so really minimal rolling shutter. And that's kind of one of the big things that I've liked about this body, is that I feel like I'm getting a ton of video options while not compromising too much on the photo end. 24 megapixels is more than enough for what I do. Although I love the 60 megapixels that I get on the Sony, I shot on 24 megapixels with the A7 III for years, and I wouldn't mind going back to it. We'll see how it all kind of goes down, but this has been my first impressions of the Nikon Z6III. Let me know what you think of the video quality, and if you enjoyed this video, leave a like, subscribe, comment, and I will catch y'all later. Keep on creating.